So we've been tracking our progress. We've been looking to see if we're making the results we want to make. We're seeing that we're getting better heart results. We're seeing we're getting better body compositional changes, but we want to try something new. And we come across this set of exercises known as a burpee, and we want to know something. Why is this a thing? We've been told there's a whole bunch of bad stuff about the burpee, how hard the burpees are, why the burpees should not be done. But what do we know about burpees? Well, let's talk
Warning:
about that.
the following presentation contains information that might contradict what you have previously heard, or believed to be true, about how the human body works, and contains material that is not suitable for closed-minded individuals. Enjoy!
And so the burpee itself was developed in the 1930s by Royal H. Burpee, its actual person, and it was developed in such a way so as to test general levels of fitness. So it's a test of fitness, even though we tend to think about this as a kind of exercise to do in the gym. It's a test of fitness that was developed in the late 1930s, and it was implemented by the US Army in the 1940s as a means to establish how fit cadets were, how fit people who were enlisting into the Army happened to be for general warfare, where on a 1 minute progress, we would expect to see very fit enlistees doing somewhere between 40 and 50 burpees, where on a 20-second burpee test, we would expect to see somewhere between 13 and above as being in excellent shape, 12 to 13 as being in good shape, 10 to 12 being as fair shape, and anything less than that being very poor. And it was done in such a way that we could do a very quick assessment of the general fitness for the individual. It wasn't where we were testing their aerobic capacity. It wasn't where we were testing their anaerobic capacity. We were not looking at their VO2 max. We weren't looking at their aerobic fitness. We weren't looking at how strong they happen to be. We're simply looking at how fit the person happened to be in terms of becoming a soldier. Now, in terms of the assessments, there were two things we looked at. We looked at what was the heart rate at the end of the assessment and what was the total number of repetitions that were completed, where we would grade out the individual in terms of heart rate response and total number of repetitions. So if we start looking at, okay, how do we do this burpee? Well, it starts in a 4-step fashion. So we start standing, we're going to squat down, we're then going to thrust back into a plank position, thrust back into a squat position, and then stand back up. And we have to do this in a controlled fashion. It's not about being as quickly as we can do it. It is a standard count rep that we want to do in terms of moving through the burpee. And from this, we can get two general measures of fitness. So what is the fitness test going to give me in terms of values? So I know what am I going to be in terms of physically fit. And so what's the normative data that we have? Well, on the 1 minute test, we know that anything above 45 is excellent, 30 to 40 is going to be good, 20 to 25 is going to be average, less than 15 is going to be below average. Now, if we look at this extended out into some of the more elite type of training tests that might be done, we can go ahead and do this into a 3 minute test where we look at grading as very poor, poor, average, good, and very good over 3 minutes. And we start seeing gender differences in between males and females based off of our sociological identification of genders, males and females, where we note that males, and once again, the sociological identification of male, will have a higher rep count in terms of the categorization relative to the females. And part of this has to deal with the indication of the test being a normative test to look at musculoskeletal endurance as well as cardiorespiratory endurance. When we start looking at musculoskeletal endurance, we toss in a little bit of power and strength into that with the indication that males will have more strength and more power capacity, which means that they should have more repetitions available to them relative to the female. Things that will change within these normative data values will include things like age, cardiorespiratory health, as well as musculoskeletal mobility, where Burpee even indicated that you have to take into account what is the actual starting cardiorespiratory health of the individual, as well as what is the musculoskeletal mobility of the person doing the burpee test. Now, that's what the burpee test is. And so the burpee test is there for us to go ahead and look at what is our fitness level. But what's happened is that the burpee test has been kind of adapted. It's been used and misused, if you want to think about it this way. And the way in which we use it and misuse it is we make new variants. And what the variants are going to do is it's going to cause changes in terms of what are we demanding of the body. And so what are some of the variants that we're going to look at? Well, we're going to look at the push-up burpee test, where instead of just going into a squat, stand, plank position, we're going to go ahead and stand, squat, into the plank, into a push-up, and then we're going to floor press ourselves up into the squat and then into the standing position. We also have the burpee to squat jump, where we're doing the same exact thing that we would do in normal burpee, but instead of just standing, we're going to jump into a standing position. Now we can go ahead and add it even more and go ahead and do a box jump instead of just doing a standard jump. And we can add a push-up into that. Instead of doing a box jump, we can do the push-up into a jumping jack or a push-up into a squat jump. Once again, what we're doing is we're increasing the demand that the exercise happens to have. Now, I'm not quite sure what we would call these in terms of the variants that we have within there, but they just happen to be variants that were available in terms of what we'd see online in terms of what we might get if we were to search burpees and we're trying to find out what type of burpees we might be able to do. And so what's the burpee variance going to give us? So in terms of the general physiological responses that we see from the burpee, what we're doing is we're looking at what is the musculoskeletal response, what is the cardiorespiratory response to the activity. So we're going to see some sort of endurance response. We're going to see some sort of power and strength response. We're going to get involved all of the push muscles, all of the muscles that are going to be responsible for extension in terms of a triple extension, both in terms of triple extension within the upper extremity, in terms of getting me up off the floor, as well as the triple extension of getting me from a sitting position to a standing position. So we're going to get pectoralis major, we're going to get triceps brachii, we're going to get the deltoid muscles come into play. We're going to get stabilizing muscles within the core, within the posterior or the backside of the trunk. We're going to get the gluteus muscles. We're going to get the quadriceps muscles. We're going to get the triceps surae muscles. We're going to get the gastrocnemius, the soleus, the plantaris coming into play in terms of the muscles that are active within the musculoskeletal system. But we're going to get a whole bunch of other muscles that come into play. Now, the modifications that we see within this, we start looking at in terms of a training regimen, which we'll get to here in a second. The modifications are meant to increase the exercise demand. That exercise demand is going to generate overload. Now, it's not going to be mechanical overload that we would normally see in terms of creating larger muscles, but it's going to be work overload. So we're going to start seeing more of an endurance response within the muscles. This is not going to be the quote unquote fat burning exercise modality that people will talk about as it being a quote unquote fat burning HIIT workout, HIIT workout. And that's simply because in terms of being fat burning, we actually have to be at lower intensities for a true fat burning activity to come into play. Now, it is speculative in terms of any changes that we might see in terms of power development coming away from doing any of the burpee trainings as is regimented within the various training modalities. We will see an increase of endurance, but we probably will not see much of an increase in power development simply because we are not allowing for set rep workload and rest intervals to be appropriate for power development within the musculoskeletal system. So the other way that we're going to use and or misuse the burpees is with training programs. And this is just going to be a list of the various training programs that I came across within a very quick internet search. There are hundreds of different types of training programs out there. All of them are set up in such a way so as to develop set rep counts for the burpees. And we'll get to a take-home message here in a second. So what are some of the training programs that we might see? The 10-minute burpee workout, the Navy SEAL workout, the CrossFit workout, the beginner's burpee workout, the death by burpee workout, the 20-minute burpee workout, the pyramid workout, the 5-minute burpee workout. Those are just a few of them. And once again, all of them are set up in such a way that they're going to take either the standard burpee or one of the variants of the burpees and incorporate them into a set rep style exercise regimen, where you're going to be progressive throughout a calendar week, a calendar month, following the burpee workout program. So what's the take-home message on the burpees? Are they as bad as what people make them out to be? Are they used the way they're supposed to be used? They're not as bad as what people make them out to be. That's the number one thing. It is an effective test for general fitness if I'm healthy. As initially developed, it's not meant to be a training regimen. However, it can be incorporated into the training regimen as long as the person is knowledgeable. We have to be very cognizant of the fact that we can induce injury if not appropriately followed and appropriately supervised. Well, thanks for watching the quick take on the burpees. If you have other exercise programs, exercise regimens, exercises that you've heard about, you want to learn more about, please drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Make sure you subscribe, give us that big thumbs up. Share out what we're putting out there with all of your friends and family, whether it's here on YouTube or on the podcast, the written stuff on Substack, or the quick takes on Instagram and on Threads. Thanks a lot for spending a couple minutes here watching and listening to the quick take here on burpees. We'd love to hear your comments about using burpees or what you'd like to know more about in terms of burpees or other exercises.